The next speaker is Omkar Chatter from Indraprastha Institute of Information Technology in Delhi, in India. And his presentation has the title Trusting the Untrustworthy, a new dimension to situating trust in artificial agents. It's great that you are here,
Hi,
Omkar.
am I audible?
Yes, yes, I can see you,
Okay,
I can hear you, I can see your slides. Just uh, start the slideshow and feel free to begin whenever.
okay. So, uh, great meeting everyone. I really like the talks, and I hope I am. I've just recently started with my PhD, so if there are any drawbacks, all constructive criticism is welcome. Okay, I'll be starting now. So, the point of my inquiry goes back to Plato. In Phaedro, there is this a little dialogue between Thamu and Theuth, where Thamu says, "O most ingenious Theuth, the parent or inventor of an art is not always the best judge of the utility or inutility of his own inventions to the users of them." So, when we are talking about trust and technology, it is a very multifaceted dimension, as we have discussed previously. But we know, we have already established in a lot of literature that trust in technology is fundamentally different from interpersonal trust. Trust mm, has layers, and trust, Bayer in her seminal work Trust and Antitrust, Bayer defines trust as trust is accepted vulnerability to another's possible but not expected ill will towards one. So one of the main questions that we have to ask that, oh, can we create, can we trust AIs that are capable of harm? Okay, they will not do it, but there is a possibility that they can. Now, one of the main features of the trust is that criteria for trust depends on trustee and trusted. If I'm in love with someone, I can trust that person without having any mm, foundation to that trust. The foundation is love without having any evidence for who I am trusting. I trust my friends with certain things. I trust my friends with um, certain tasks, but I know what to trust them with and what not to trust them with. I mean, I can trust my friend to protect my life, but I can't trust my friend to keep a cake safe. So, this is a very fundamental criteria of trust, that trust is bipartisan. It involves two actors, and there is always a possibility of vulnerability in trust. Now, so Patrick Badiou gave this ontology for trust in their paper, which talks about access to knowledge, transparency, explainability, system and service quality, data quality, etc. Then the benefits, intention of use, perceived risks. And again, so basically, they classify it on three criteria: ability, integrity, and benevolence. But this separation of trust into different categories make it more difficult, because a system can be fully transparent but you still can't trust it. It may be explainable. Oh, an AI can explain why it took a certain decision, but if that decision is harmful for others, then it can create issue of trust as well. Then there is a problem of social responsibility, ethical behavior, and sustainability as well. So this ontology that we work with for trust, um, it is one of the main problems with it is that it is based in an older understanding of technology. And what do we mean by older? What do I mean by older understanding of technology? We'll get to that. So limitations of this. criteria is basically transparency. A system can be transparent but not completely trustworthy, and it can be explainable. What do we mean by fairness, or what are the criteria of fairness that are being used? Accountability. So we see that the discussion has been revolving around these four parts, that how do we um, pinpoint a responsibility, how do we pinpoint accountability. There are a lot of multiple factors that are being used. We are trying to hold, a lot of people are saying corporate should be responsible, other people are like, so in yesterday's session we discussed that, oh, user may be equally accountable. But so there is a need for creating, developing trust in AI, which is sociability, triability, and interpretability as well. So these are the criteria that we are now trying to come up with, that, oh, how sociable is a given technology? Uh, has it been tried and tested enough times? How can it be interpreted by different users? So these criteria are more focused on creating trust in AI, that, oh, how do we trust AI more? How do we trust a system that is there, but not creating a trustworthy system itself? It's not about creating a trustworthy AI. So here we have to philosophize AI in itself. So the need of ethics in AI. So I'm going back to uh, broken record, but I need that it needs to be reiterated, because we need a new criteria for trust in AI, because we are headed into a completely new technological society. 10 years ago, it would, this meeting where I am sitting in a remote corner of India, and you are uh, you have all joined from different corners in the world, it would not have been possible. But this interaction is being is now possible. I'm able to connect with everyone. So the very nature of society, or the very nature of interpersonal relationships, is changing. So with technology, the society also changes. So then it becomes very important not only to reinvestigate AI, but our relationship with technology, and then historicize it, decontextualize it, and then from there we can chart a path towards future. So we have to see that how AI that is already been integrated into the society has failed us. So here is a meme I created for this conference, that the promise of social media versus the actual social media. And a lot of literature speaks about that, how social media companies were one of the very earliest users of AI algorithms, and they created algorithms to maximize user engagement, that would lead to that would result in higher revenues for these companies. But then the side product ended up being that there was a proliferation of hate, because hate speech and hate content and misinformation, the morally outrageous content was the one that was garnering the most engagement. And then that created social media into this vortex and monster of misinformation and hatred, that people of my generation don't want to use Facebook anymore, and people who are trapped on Facebook can't seem to get out of it. And the kind of content that is being recycled and reused, it's very morally outraging. So when we are talking about AI, we have to see that it exists in a particular historical development, and then we have to see it from a historical lens as well. So Hansen notes that it's very important not to associate technology with only machines and tools, but also with social and cultural practices associated with it. The social embedding of the hardware is the part and parcel of are very much limited to, oh, what do we mean by explainability of AI, and our or accountability of AI. But that discussion in itself remains very limited if we do not take the socio-political aspect of that technology into the discussion as well. So we see that in Greek times, there was a huge discussion and debate on the difference between episteme and technique. That what do we mean by knowledge and what do we mean by technique? That where does knowledge end and technique start? So this discussion takes place in several parts of Socratic dialogues. It takes place in Aristotle. For Stoics, the distinction between episteme and techne does not exist, but in general, so episteme is considered as knowing, whereas techne is considered as the applied use of that knowledge. And then again, we see mm, this idea again pop up in Weber, where he talks about value rationality and instrumental rationality. That oh, how do we think? How do we make choices? How do we think rationally with different parts? That with different purposes. Value rationality has completely different motivations, whereas instrumental rationality is particularly based around a means to an end approach. Now, we again see that a lot of people, especially um, people like Marx or a Frankfurt School, they talk about technology. So for Marx, technology is more like means of production. He goes on to speak about that oh, worker becomes the machine attendant, that oh, people become for people, that one of the main results of capitalism is that people are for machines and machines are not for people. Then again, we go into the critique of modern technology by Frankfurt School, where Frankfurt School is talking about more of social dimensions of technology. That oh, how technology is affecting art, how it's affecting politics, how it's affecting propaganda, also how it's changing socio-political relations. So Horkheimer, Adorno, even Walter Benjamin for that matter, all of these people had a very heavy critique of, even including Marx as well. Their critique of technology was much more directed from a socio-political point of view and not only from a technical point of view. So the society embeds, the technology is embedded in society, and then it changes the society as well. Now let's say that oh, I am using a mixer grinder as in my house, but same mixer grinder, it is technical. There goes a lot of things in cooking and making that mixer grinder work. There is a network of electricity that powers that mixer grinder, but it's not seen as very technical compared to other things. So even society sees technology as something that is on the edge, something that is new, something that is a new artifact, a new development is seen more technological, whereas the technology that is already integrated in the society is seen as oh, it's there. It and only problem when like Heidegger says that the only problem we notice that it's not working is when there is a problem with it. So then comes Heidegger and postmodernists. Now we have to see that with Heidegger, the path that the this discussion was taking, it changes its route, and Heidegger tries to get away with the subject object duality in itself. Heidegger talks about technology as revealing, where what he means by revealing. So I understand his revealing as technology becomes the process in which we act through our understanding of the world. Like riding a bike, I can know 100 theoretical things about riding a bike, but until I ride the bike, I'm not using that technology. So technology becomes a unity of theory and practice. Now, again, so then comes AI. So where AI is separate from previous uh, versions of technology was that AI does not have four causes. AI does the four causes of Aristotle that we talk about. We have generally we think that, oh, we are done with Aristotle, but uh, it is a very good starting point. That any given technological artifact, like let's say this water bottle, even when I don't know what this bottle is, this bottle has its bottleness. It has its thingness. Any instrument, any object has its mm, thingness to it. So even when we are not using it as a tool, as an instrument, it still has that thingness. But AI does not have that thingness. It's not physical. It's a manifestation of instrumental rationality of Weber, where we go on to uh, where we see it in a direct historical progression of capitalism and then a lot of other things, historical things going on, and then comes AI. So it is literally a manifestation of a means for an end idea. So basically, AI is a I would like to see AI as a manifestation of instrumental rationality. It is an instrumentality in itself. So when we this is from the draft that is yet to be published, uh, where knowing and learning are two simultaneously occurring processes. A better example can be given is that of riding a bike. We can have all theoretical knowledge of riding a bike, but we need to put it in a technique to truly ride a bicycle. This technology becomes the process where we put theoretical knowledge into practice. It holds up as long as it's working. Thus, the revealing or the truth exists at a point where subject object dualism ends. The knower and the what is known, knowledge and the knower distinction ends. That a bike cannot be ridden without a biker. So, and then things start functioning as one. The rider and the bike are one. Their dualism has ended. When the rider is driving a bike, it change the very nature of the rider changes. So he is not on the bike is not only an object anymore. It also becomes part of the subject. So when we have to come to again our contemporary scene, that okay, so where does this traditional technology and AI, where does it bring us? So as we discussed the four causes of Aristotle, that we can discuss AI in terms of its four causes: material cause, formal cause, efficient cause, and the final cause. There is no material cause. What can we see as a formal cause? I mean, what do we? The question arises that what is a formal cause for an AI? The efficient cause can be seen as developers or people who put in their work, people who type in the algorithms, people who code, who know coding, and people who are doing the coding work. They can be seen as the efficient cause, and the final cause can be seen as the organization or entity which has created AI, which has created it for its very definite purpose and which sets it in motion. It can be an individual, it can be an organization. So here we see that it is fundamentally different from traditional technology in sense that traditional technology does not have a final cause and definitely has a material cause. A car, even if it's junk, the structure still remains. If I program a code and then break my system apart, does the code still exist? So the material cause for AI is not there. And there are also a lot of questions on formal cause. So this is the clear separation of AI from contemporary, from traditional technology. Now we have to go into, then again there are two different types of AI, but let's go into a broader classification of a local AI and a global AI. So a local AI is still okay, it's instrumentality, but it's doing its job in a very limited domain. Let us say an AI that schedules flight. It's part of the organization. It's working in a local domain. We there are enough structures to look at its problems if it goes wrong. But in a global AI, a AI that is working on a global level, it becomes much more difficult. That because there are myriad different types of users, there are mm, almost a billion people connected to it. So here I go back to Phaedro's argument, where Phaedro says, where Plato says that, or Plato quotes that an inventor cannot be trusted with his opinion about the invention. This is the picture of the 7 CEOs of major cigarette brands in US uh, declaring under oath that nicotine does not cause addiction. Well, the amount of money I spend on cigarettes would say otherwise, but yeah. So can we trust developers with their opinions on AI? Because an developer has a very limited and narrow understanding of what his product could be and what society would change the product into. Again, going back to Bayer, that trust is accepted vulnerability to another's possible but not expected ill will. And why I'm reiterating this is because AI and new dimensions. So we have to see AI in these three categories of instrumentality, of what it's doing, how it's doing that. It serves as literally as a code of how shall instruments work. It becomes that essence of how things will move in a different way. But functionality and social impact. So here is where I discuss new problems with AI. The first problem is that of an artificial trust. What do we mean by artificial trust? Like, let's say we are talking about um, someone comes into our life, we become very good friends. I know that, oh, that person is reliable, he does all these things, and mm, he is generally a trustworthy person. But then, if what if the person has been manipulating his behavior in a way that so that I would trust the other person? Same goes with AI, that an AI, because of its reliability and other factors, create a sense of trust in them. Let's again going back to the mm, social media, because social media has been one platform where AI has been integrated for the longest time in public domain. So I have, that is a pretty strong example, I believe. So social media lulls a person into this false sense of safety, where mm, that, oh, this is a good system, it lets you connect to people, this and that. But then the background processes of a social media slowly bring out the worst in a person. We can see it happen in Myanmar. We can see it happening on YouTube, where YouTube algorithm, you click on one wrong video and you get into this rabbit hole of misinformation. And we're because we have already trusted the platform, we start trusting, we have let our guard down. So the problem of artificial trust, that okay, whether when a system induces a feeling of trust, where people lower their guard down or lower their mm, questioning of any given channel. It also works in a lot of different areas, like media organizations, where an organization or is giving good news at start, but at the end of it just becomes a propaganda channel. We see it happening globally. Also, one of the main problem with AI for me, which I am trying to explore through my work, is the problem of double agency. That an AI is the way fundamentally an AI is different from conventional technology. That okay, I have this bottle and I can drink from it, and I can use whenever I wanted to, and I cannot use it, and it will just be here. But an AI does not work like that. It exists in a system where other people have access to it. So let's say an AI has multiple users, user one, user two, user three. So an AI can be doing different things for those different users. So um, let us again going back to the example of social media. We see it as for a general user, Instagram is about content. Oh, they go, they watch videos, they watch reels, they share memes, and that's it. For other people, it's a popularity platform, but they still exist within the category of user one. Whereas for other people who pay the organization, it is a advertising platform where user one's data and user one's screen time is being sold to user two. And then there is user three, which has the maximum access to the system, where the access could be epistemic, it could be structural, it could be um, through means of capital. So any AI has multiple access points. So with the coding of AI in itself, we have to see that it can be seen that, oh, what we are working with is a double agent. An artificial agent will always be a double agent. So that makes any artificial agent untrustworthy to begin with. Because you guys might have seen that in news recently that BMW has changed its heating seats in their car to a subscription level, or BMW or some company had did it. I'm forgetting the name of the company, but some company has changed their seating to a subscription level, and that was because the cars have gotten smart, and now the companies have higher um, control of cars. So then any instrument, the instrumentality in itself has multiple access points. So it creates a problem of fidelity, that who is AI more loyal to. So that creates a very thought-provoking problem, that can we trust a double agent, even though it can be doing everything it's supposed to, but on a fundamental level, we can't trust a double agent because we don't know where its fidelity lies. And then again is a Trojan horse problem, that what can be seen as a minor personal convenience or even a major personal convenience can unfold a lot of unforeseen social problems. That it's not only an individual who works with technology, but it's the society at large who integrates the technology in itself. Coal was brought in as a less polluting option to horses, because oh, horses were pooping everywhere in the cities, and now coal became the biggest enemy of the man. So this Trojan horse problem of any given technology, where we try to solve a problem and it ends up creating a lot more problems. That is also a part that I'm trying to explore through my work. So here I am concluding my talk that with a quote from Frank Herbert, that once men turned their thinking over to machines in the hopes that this would set them free, but that only permitted other men with machines to enslave them. So the conclusion for this would be that fidelity and use structure of any given AI system, especially public AIs that are working in public domains, it needs to be public policy. There needs to be much more robust regulations and control structures on public AI systems. We need to come up with a particular role of governments and public institutions that, okay, what we have is a Pandora's box. We think it's a gift, but we don't know what all can be coming out of it. Because, okay, I understand a lot of people have this idea that, oh, AI is going to be revolutionary, AI is going to bring in a lot of good things, which I completely agree with. But the way AI has been used in its earlier iterations makes me question this idea that is it really going to be good? Because AI is, given that, as we established, that it is not an instrument but instrumentality in itself. So can it distinguish from that, oh, humans are not supposed to be means to an end? And even if it can, it's only someone needs to erase few lines of code and it can go haywire. Again, so one of the main points that I would like to highlight, that the role of AI developers and scientists, that it needs to be much more integrated with social scientists and humanities scholars as well. Because the way our education systems are working, the branches of science and the branches of society have been completely separated, and there is hardly any interaction going on in these two. I mean, I know we are talking about it, but in general, people who are developing the way courses are structured, the way people are taught, the way the segregation of subjects takes place in our universities and colleges. So that needs to be changed, where developers need to be more aware of the social impact of technology as well. That the idea that technology is only about instrument, we need to break away from that. Also, at this point, given the kind of crises that we are facing as a society, the economic crisis, the climate crisis, the AI crisis, the society crisis, where society has become so, like, we are so polarized, and so there is a need to break away from capitalist instrumental rationality, and we need to find ways to code AIs through value rationality as well. And I guess that's the end. Mm.
Thank you very much, Omkar, for your insightful presentation on trust in AI, and the societal, and the need to consider the societal implication, the social context of AI use. We have time for one or two questions. So who has questions, thoughts, comments? Dan?
Yeah, thanks a lot. It's very interesting, and I think just mainly very correct about a lot of the issues going on, and an interesting tour through some of the history of ethics of technology and from a philosophical perspective. In terms of us getting some philosophers or social scientists into the room, I think that sometimes happens in AI institutes, but it might just be a little bit token, just one or two. Nick and I have been invited to some group, and we'll see if the philosophers and social scientists really get anything to say or not as time goes on. But sorry, my actual question is, you brought up Aristotle and the four causes, and I don't hate Aristotle or anything, but I just, so I'm not sure if maybe I misunderstood, but I'm not sure if I agree with the claims that there isn't a material cause for AI, or that the final cause is actually the corporate cause or something like that. So I'll try and be quick. For material cause, I mean, it's not made of nothing. It's made of, chips and circuits and a power connection, and software. Software is not made of nothing. So there's something there, but I don't think either of these are a problem for your overall view of what you end up saying and recommending. And the other one is the final cause. Is I think it's not uncommon for things to have a final cause that's given to them by something else or someone else, or that they have a final cause, but it's not really of them anyway, like the final cause of a tree or something. So would it matter if the final cause of a tree was given to it from someone else? So I think AI does, any specific instantiation of an AI does have a final cause that it's programmed to have. So I think it does have one. It just can be put there by the corporations, which I think is probably your biggest worry about it. And I think that's still a big worry about it. So it's just, I just don't know if you needed Aristotle, or I think it's very problematic, and you gave reason to think it's problematic without worrying about whether it has these four causes or not.
So even I don't like Aristotle a lot, but I thought that this, because I was starting from Phaedro, I thought even including Aristotle would be a good point, because later in my talk, I did talk about the thingness of a thing, that the idea that comes from Heidegger. But so I was trying to simplify it even for myself, that, oh, where do I see it in the progression of ideas? That, okay, Aristotle would not agree that, Aristotle would say that, oh, God is the final cause for everything, but everything does have a material cause in itself. Whereas I was thinking of it in terms like, oh, I have an AI code on my AI program on my laptop, but if it's not connected to the power source, is the AI still there? Because the material is there. Or even if I smash my laptop into pieces and it just shatters, the material is still there. The code is still there in the pieces, but is AI still there? So from that, I kind of thought, oh, so because it's more about the code rather than the material, the code can be changed. The materials can remain the same, but the code can be changed. So I thought, oh, the material cause does not translate to AI in general, because what we're talking, an AI in theory can work on paper because it's just a code. A lot of computer scientists that I work with, they say that, oh, AI does not need a computer to work. Like, it's a simple mathematical code, and if it takes time, but you can run it on a paper as well. So the bits, the pieces, the software are not exactly the material cause, I would like to believe. But yeah, I do get that I should not have inserted Heidegger, even though I should have not inserted Aristotle, even though I was not sorry I'm so sorry even though I was using Heidegger's idea of thingness, which gives me the same argumentative effect. But in the paper, in the larger paper that I've written, so I'm tracking this history of technology in Greek thought as well. So there it plays a significant part, and I thought I should include that in the presentation, but it's more for the paper actually.
I very much like the image of the Trojan horse. I think this was a nice idea to bring this in. And I mean, this could be used for all sorts of AI technology, including replica and the claims about friendship and
Yeah.
kinds of things. And I understand that when we think of the Trojan horse, and you mentioned this, that interpretability, and I would add also transparency are important criteria for trust in this context. I mean, when we think of the horse, transparency, I mean, this is just the picture, of course, but I mean,
Yeah.
what do you think of this? You mentioned interpretability in the beginning, and I'm not sure about transparency. I think you mentioned it when you talked about policy. And so I'm could you just extend a little bit more on these?
So the classical ideas of trust that are transparency, explainability, accountability, and fairness are basically for a much more classical understanding of technology. But with AI, with its myriad of layers of deployment and uses, where a user may not entirely know what the AI is supposed to do. He knows that what he can use it for, but then he does not know what all is going on in the background. I mean, I know my phone is for calling and everything, but at the same time, it's listening to my voice, it's filtering my data, it's suggesting me ads. So there's a lot of these background processes that goes on that a person does not really know about. So, and that's where transparency lacks. That, oh, even if any organization tells you that, oh, this is what the use cases are going to be, but a lot of times they are, I mean, let's say when your Gmail changes its privacy policies, they inform you, they're being very transparent, but the way any hidden changes are mentioned in small subtext where that transparency is of very little use. You click on I accept and you go ahead and your data gets shared with everyone in the world. So the transparency part is still very limiting in, I believe that, because also, and when we're talking about interpretability, one of the main parts of technology is that it's interpretable. That what can mean something for me may mean completely different things for you. I mean, it is largely people use a one single artifact for a single thing, but a pen, for me it may have a lot more emotional significance. For me, it is much more comfortable to hold in my hands. I can interpret it in a multiple different ways. I can interpret it in a this water bottle. I can interpret it as a piece of art. I can it is for drinking water, but I can fill it with candies and use it for use it as a container. The final interpretability of any given technology lies with the user. But that is not the case with AI, where when AI, you are given a certain node that you will work within, and the amount of access is so limited that it cannot be interpreted in any other way. Or you don't even know that the system is working to for it. It's not yours to interpret, it's not yours to engage with. So the idea of interpretability, and again idea of fidelity, I'm in my work I'm trying to bridge it to the larger idea of ownership, that we cannot have corporate owned AIs. We need to decentralize AIs in a much more broader way, so that everyone gets a share in the interpretation of what it can be, and not only few players in the industry. So the idea of fidelity and interpretability later in my paper tie up to the idea of ownership, that ownership is also a very important part of building trust. That, okay, let us say we all drive cars, we know our cars very well. We know that even if the fuel gauge is showing on empty, you know that it will drive for 5 more kilometers. You know that how much it's gonna go because it's your car, you've used it, you're its owner. But if that is not the case, then the part of ownership also gives you, also makes the relationship much more bipartisan. That when we are it removes the unnecessary agents that have broader access to any given system. But that is in a much more broader part. And this is I think it will go this was supposed to be a paper, but now it's turning into a book of sorts. So the interpretability and fidelity translate later into ownership as well. So that's where that is coming from.
Yeah, thank you very much. This was a very interesting context that you developed. Thanks a lot, Omkar, for your presentation, and thanks a lot to the other speakers for their presentations, for great discussions. This is the end of our session.